simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Open your mind.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Conversations on the Fringe, coming to you this Friday night, Aliens, Cabal, and Transhumanism. I am here with the one, the only, the legend himself, Jeff Wong. If you guys don't know Jeff hosts the Miracles Online and the 13th Note podcast, the creator of the 13th Note. Amazing human being, and I asked him to join me tonight because we've been talking about it, and I just don't have time to do the Conversations on the Fringe anymore, just with everything I have going on. And Jeff has been on the channel for 7-8 months now, and I'm like, Jeff, you know this stuff just as well as I do. How about you come on and start hosting Conversations on the Fringe? And Jeff's like, I would be honored. And so tonight is our transition show. Jeff, how we doing, man?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much. And like I said, this is an honor. This is a show that I'm dear to my heart. I've listened to it for many years, and here I am.
Awesome,
So,
man.
Yeah.
So for anybody wondering about Rumble started early, and the stream kind of died out a few times. We had two full starts, but Rumble is up and rocking and rolling right now. So if you are normally on Rumble and you want to go back on Rumble, you can go check it out on Rumble because the show is up and live. So Jeff is absolutely a human. Yep, Jeff is 100% a human. Someone asked, he's like, you're just clarifying that Jeff is a human? Yes, we are clarifying Jeff is a human. But tonight we're gonna do a little bit of news. So no daily dose today, but we're gonna get that news out there, talk a little bit about what's happening in the world, and then we're gonna expand that topic into what we think could potentially happen on the weird, fringy conspiracy side of the world. And this is a kind of an extension, a little bit of the conversation Tammy and I were having last night. And I know my hair is a little weird. I kind of. I don't know. I don't know where my head is. So you're just going to have to deal with it, people. But today, we had a few different events. Obviously, yesterday, John Bolton indictment arraigned today, turned himself in to the authorities. Now, why is that interesting? Well, I look at it as interesting because now we can go and update the list. What list are you talking about? Post 4621. And we can go in there and finally update it. And I did the pleasure because the boards are no longer. So the boards are now on X. 4621, August 17th, 2020. Placeholder indictments tracking non-civilians. Set 1, Kevin Kleinsmith. KC 11-3, James Comey. John Bolton. Look at that right there. And so who is next? Maybe McCabe, maybe Brennan. I think it's going to be McCabe or Brennan. My thoughts are John Brennan, but I think Andy McCabe is a close second on that. So interesting right there. And a few different things. Tomorrow, massive No Kings protest. My thoughts on that, stay vigilant. Just understand that these protests are meant to incite violence. That's the whole purpose that they're bringing them about. They want absolute chaos in the streets. And this is going to kind of be the theme that we're going to talk about tonight. Because we have to understand that Ordus Novus Seclorum, right? Order out of chaos, the New World Order, the New World of the Ages, is what they want specifically is dire chaos because they get to control the chaos, or at least the results that derive from the chaos, and that puts them back in control. And we are dealing with a very, very occult and dark and evil enemy here on the planet right now. George Santos commuted. Sentence has been commuted by President Donald Trump today. Great. I think George Santos is actually a great dude. I met him in D.C. when I was there for the inauguration. Love the guy. He's a really big dude, by the way, too. Didn't realize he was that big, but he's a large dude. And I'm not saying fat. I mean, like really tall. Other news today. Prince Andrew surrenders his royal duties, including the Duke of York title. That's actually pretty huge. I don't think people are kind of understanding that. I mean, man, he came out and proclaimed his innocence with the accusations against him, but the mere fact that he had his duties and his titles removed is an embarrassment, which tells you that most likely there is something that is going to drop about him relatively soon that is going to prove that he is guilty. And then the one little tidbit that I have for the Daily Dose news today is this guy. And I got to bring it up. I want to play it for you real quick. It's just a little bit of Donald Trump sitting next to Marco Rubio and something that he said. And I'm going to give a little background on this, and then we're going to get fringy. But listen to this.
That was in a submarine, right? We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs, just so you understand. This was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines. And that was an attack on a drug-carrying, loaded-up submarine.
So you're telling me that there was a drug-carrying, loaded-up submarine that they attacked, and the U.S. Navy sunk it. Interesting. I mean, who could have said that was going to happen, or that was one of the possibilities of what was going on? Man, interesting. All the talk about MQ-9 Reapers with anti-submarine warfare capabilities, the U.S. nuclear submarine in the region. So a submarine, and by the way, there's various different submarines that they have down in Venezuela or in the cartels. There's very, very small modular ones that actually aren't that big, but there's a lot of Soviet-era diesel submarines that they do have. And these ones are weapons capable. So I don't know. And the fact that he came out and said it, but there is no information on it, I think that tells us that this was possibly some type of former Soviet diesel submarine or something of this nature. Just my thoughts on it. But it's ramping up out there. Now, that reminds you of the Ghislaine Maxwell post on the Q boards where she can take a submarine between Venezuela and Jeffrey Epstein's Island and transfer children that way. Yeah. Well, Venezuela is a great place to start. And last night we were talking about underground bases, underground military bases, underground complexes. And I want people to understand that these things are very, very real. Clayton Morris just did a whole expose on this, although I disagree with him on Denver International Airport. And I'll actually reach out to him and let him know. I worked at Denver International Airport, but people don't know this about me. Jeff, I worked for United Airlines for 7 years. I was at Denver International Airport in Concourse B. I had an IT SITA badge. So you have DHS, which controls access to all the areas of the airport after September 11th. And you go out there and you have to get a badge for access. And this is one of the reasons I say that when we talk about the hijacker and Seattle-Tacoma Airport getting into the hangar and getting the Q400, it just didn't happen. It's impossible because he wouldn't have had SITA badge access because baggage handlers don't have that access. Being IT, I had access to basically everything but the tarmac. So I had access to every door, every building inside the airport. So one thing that we used to do at Denver International Airport is we used to go look for entrances into the military base. I shit you not. When I got there, the first things that they told me were like, you're probably aware that there's like conspiracy theories surrounding this airport. And I want to let you know that we've driven around and we've searched this is from people on my team. We've searched every door and we've never found an entrance. I'm like, I'll find it. Trust me, I will find it. And I was fortunate because I actually got in. So for United Airlines, we have an area underneath B Concourse where IT was housed. And in there was the original blueprints from 1988, 1989. And so I got to see all the structure and how they built it. And there's rumor of the baggage handling conveyor belts. They call it railroad tracks or trains. It's actually not that exciting, people. So I want to give everybody an idea. And I never understood this until later in my life. But there is these railroad tracks that connect the main concourse, the A, B, and C concourse at Denver International Airport. And they're not in tunnels. They're actually in the tunnels underneath the concourses, which everybody's operating on. This is where all the baggage carousels are going and all this stuff. And we drive carts through there. It's nothing secret about that area. But there's on the sides of the tunnels, when you're going through them, there's these kind of railroad tracks, these track lines. And this is where the baggage carousels are supposed to work. And what's supposed to happen is they're supposed to just throw them into the trains, and the trains will automate and take them to the main concourse and drop them off at the right baggage belt. They don't work. $1.2 billion in cost back in the 1990s, and they don't work. And they changed the design 3 different times. Mm-hmm. And by the way, literally, this is just tracks, some automated trains, and some software, and it's never worked. Now, is there a place where people can go into the tunnels at Denver International Airport? No, it doesn't exist. I swear to you, trust me, I've looked, I've tried to find them. I've been all around the airport location. No such thing. There's no place to go inside these tunnels. And you couldn't drive a truck in under the concourses. It's just not big enough. Like, you can drive golf carts and stuff, and you can drive like the baggage carts and stuff, but you can't drive like a semi truck down there. And there is no entrance on DIA where that can happen. But the conspiracy, there is one. And I swear to you, there is one. And the reason is because I think that people had it all wrong because they never had access to Denver International Airport, Jeff. So one of the things I noticed, and by the way, this happened, like, I had always looked at myself like, I know that there's no entrance or anything like this. And they used to have a smoking lounge at DIA. And I was in there one day, and this guy is like looking at a map of DIA, and he's like, "You work here?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "How do I get into the tunnels?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Well, I'm researching the conspiracy of the underground military base here, and I know there's an entrance here. Someone told me that there's an elevator you can take, and it's guarded by Marines, and there's a bathroom over there with 9-foot urinals where aliens go pee." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, you got some issues. There's no such thing. Like, there's no Marines here or any of this stuff. There's no good guy." He's like, "You're lying." He made a big scene about it. And I'm like, I should probably like research this more so I can debunk people, right?
Yeah.
So I started looking into this really heavy. I started traveling around Denver International Airport. And what I began to realize is that there is absolutely no reference whatsoever, no entrance, no indication that there's an underground military base. But once you get into the story of DIA, this is where it gets weird. So you used to have Stapleton, which was actually right in Denver, and it backed up to a rural community, and the community was built knowing that there was an airport there. And a lot of the people in the HOAs knew this, and there was like no sue clauses to where if the planes came over their house, they couldn't sue for noise ordinance. Well, eventually Stapleton grew up so large that people started complaining. So they proposed 54 square acre excavation outside over in Aurora that they would annex for Denver County, and that they would build the airport. And that's exactly what they did. And the project took a very long time. I think it was like 6 or 7 year project to build Denver International Airport. Now, other than that, there's really kind of no weird stuff about it. There's a Masonic temple kind of symbology there. There's the Martin Marietta was the company that actually bored a lot of the underground tunnels that go under DIA, which aren't very, very deep. Martin Marietta, Lockheed Martin eventually bought them out in the 1990s. But there's interesting things here. So one of my thoughts was, well, if there's a deep underground military base in Colorado by DIA, well, why would you have the entrance at DIA? It makes no sense. Like, number one is you got controlled access. You got cameras everywhere. Every person that's going to need access to it's going to have a SITA badge. That's paperwork. There's just too much record trail. It's not secret anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, there's a military base right next to DIA, Buckley Air Force Base, which is Buckley Space Force Base now. And right next to Buckley is Lockheed, Raytheon. They're all there. Okay? And I'm like, wait a minute. I go back and I start checking the records. Buckley Air Force Base was an active duty Air Force base all up until the time when DIA construction started. When DIA, Denver International Airport construction started, Buckley Air Force Base went into a limited use base and went to a reserve facility. Okay? In 1992, when Denver International Airport's construction completed, Buckley went back to an active duty military base. I said, that's odd. During that same time, Buckley Air Force Base was going under major construction and renovation. And by the way, you have the military industrial complex that's right there by Buckley. And I said, Buckley is an hour and a half away from NORAD, right? Cheyenne Mountain Complex. It is the so it's the continuity of government. It's one of the heads of continuity of government for NORAD. So it's the fallback place for NORAD if NORAD ever got destroyed. This is the next command and control center, but it's a above ground base. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Well, you start digging, and what you find out is that underneath Buckley is World War II bunkers. And I said, wait a minute. Is there an underground military base underneath Buckley Air Force Base? And you start digging into it, and sure enough, there's an underground military facility that expands under Buckley, under Raytheon and Lockheed. And I said, what are the odds that they wanted to expand this underground complex? So they annexed 54 acres right next to it, 54 square acres right next to it, and covered up the expansion of an underground military complex by the building of an airport on top of it. So I'm at Denver International Airport, and they have these massive HVAC systems. And so the tunnels, they go through, and then you can go down a level in the tunnels, and it's all like all the piping and HVAC. But then when you get down in there, every like probably 40 yards through the tunnel, there's a drop down 30 feet. And that drop down is the HVAC facility. Now I said, wait a minute, why does this doesn't make sense? Why are we going to have these big HVACs 30 feet down under the second level of tunnels? And then you start looking at all of the ventilation. It's going down. And I said, wait a minute. And you can't even get in there. So it's locked. So you go up there and there's gates around it and it's all locked off. You can look down in there. And I had pictures on an old phone somewhere. And I'm like, there is no entrance to this underground facility, but there is indications of it there. And then there is cooling pools in the fields of DIA. What do I mean by that? If you go look at an aerial view of Denver International Airport, excuse me, you'll see these various different locations that look like cooling pools for like a nuclear reactor. And so my thoughts are that there is an underground military facility underneath Denver International Airport, although Denver International Airport has no accessibility to it whatsoever, but is a cover for the underground facility, including air filtration, ventilation, and power generation. That's my story.
Yeah. I think you're pretty good on that. Because I was at Denver Airport about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I have to tell you that the energy of that airport is extremely dark. It's a very low vibration so-called area. And I felt it as soon as we land. And I said to Kat, my wife, of course, and says, hey, this is the crappiest place we could be. And I don't mean that to be offensive, but I could feel it. And this is the same thing I felt when I was in the Vatican City Museum. You get that overwhelming negative, low vibration coming at you. So I have always believed that. I saw the documentary as well in regards to the airport going underneath where they're showing you there's nothing down here. There's conveyor belts for the luggage and so forth. So by just them doing that makes it suspect. In all the Freemason imageries, the New World Order imageries throughout that airport, how could you not question? How could you not look at that and say something's going on?
Interesting about the New World Order imagery. So the imagery actually predates the airport. So the first images by this artist, who's Native American, by the way, was at CU Boulder and CU Denver. And he was commissioned right after the airport build for those murals. And they wanted an extension of what he was doing, which was I think it was like a loss of hope or something like that. But it was representative of global totalitarianism taking over the world and how we need to rise with the children for hope and change a generation. And it was symbolic of the native genocide that happened within our country over the last 300-400 years. So that's kind of what explains a lot of that. Do I think that there's a conspiracy behind it? I don't think that the artist had anything to do with the conspiracy. I think he was just very expressive and saw the world going in a certain direction. I think the people who commissioned the artwork, I do think that there probably is a conspiracy about that they chose that artwork for a very specific reason. I mean, it was called the New World Airport, right? Also, I mean, it's interesting. Denver, Colorado is a really interesting place. I have a contact who is a very, very high-ranking 33rd degree Mason. And he says in downtown Denver, there's a secret lodge.
Oh, man.
And he says that you can walk down the street and you walk into this building and it looks just like any other building. And sure enough, you go in and you do a knock and you give them the password and they let you in and it's a secret lodge. And he says that you can go in there and there's very high profile people, that there's pictures on the wall of very high profile people. And so, I mean, and he said that these exist in every major city. And it's not the type of, it's not the Freemason, it's not the Masons at your local town that are down there cooking hamburgers to raise money, people. We're talking about a different level of Masons here.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there a conspiracy around DIA? Yeah, but the majority of the nonsense out there is nonsense. Anybody's claiming that they went to DIA and they went into a secret military underground base, they're absolutely full of shit. And I can guarantee you that just because I worked there for 7 years, and trust me, I looked, I searched. I got in every single elevator and went down, and never did I skip a level and go down 30 feet into an underground military base and find a Marine guard in a door. It doesn't happen. It's nonsense. And I'll call anybody out who wants to contest me on that. Anybody who says that I've been to DIA and I visited the military base, you're full of shit. I'm a conspiracy theorist. This is what I do. You're full of shit, right? Yeah. I mean, there's certain points where we have experience within certain aspects of things that we can call bullshit on things. And I've seen a lot of it throughout the years of people coming up with UFO phenomena or people coming out about underground military bases. And you can just tell by their story, the way they tell it, that some people are full of shit. But that is the honest to God. I worked there for 7 years, people. Yeah. This is the truth about DIA. I do believe 100% there is an underground military facility under DIA. That facility is probably a mile or two underneath. And, Clayton goes on in the episode and he talks about the interconnectivity with vacuum chambered maglev trains. That's legit. So one thing that I was on a plane. I left San Diego. I think it was Thanksgiving, like 2005 or 2006. I was meeting my dad in Las Vegas for Thanksgiving. And I got on a plane in San Diego, and the guy next to me, sitting next to me on the plane, worked for SPAWAR. So SPAWAR was Lockheed Martin, or was it Raytheon? But worked for a government contractor. We started talking. I was telling him what I do. I was thinking about getting out at the time. And he's like, oh, what do you do? And I started talking, advanced weapon systems, these types of things. He goes, oh, man, I could probably get you a job where I'm at. I'm like, well, what do you do? He goes, well, I work on a lot of classified projects, but primarily I develop space relay systems and space satellite systems and all these. I'm like, oh, cool. And I'm like, well, what kind of classified projects do you work in? Because I can't really talk about that. But he goes, I can talk about a few different things. I said, oh, yeah? He goes, did you know we have bases under the ocean? I said, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, you want to know the interesting thing? Because we're over the continent by this time. And he says, the interesting thing about the North American continent, or any continent for that matter, is we tend to think that they're just continuous rock and bedrock and granite. He goes, what do you have after a million years of water smacking into granite? And I said, erosion. He goes, so why haven't the continents eroded underneath and haven't become floating islands? And I said, that's a good point, right? He goes, the reason is because they're porous. That underneath the bedrock is this porous material of where the ocean waters actually flow underneath the continent, and they carve out caverns. He goes, massive caverns. And he goes, the majority of freshwater lakes that you see on the surface are actually the ocean water rising up, depositing its salt bank, and then going and becoming freshwater lakes. And I'm like, that makes so much sense, actually, because under each freshwater lake, we find a pile of salt. Mm-hmm. Like, that makes a lot of sense. And he goes, we're flying over Nevada at this point. And he goes, hey, look right over here. This is actually where I'm going. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, look in the lake. And there was a man-made lake. And he goes, do you see that? I'm like, is that a submarine? He goes, how do you get a submarine in Nevada? I said, huh? And he goes, underground bases. He goes, we have tunnel systems that connect massive amounts of underground military bases all throughout the continent that go through these porous caverns, basically that have been eroded over millions of years underneath our continent. And we built these hyper channel systems that connect them. He goes, all of the Livermore National Laboratories, White Sands, all of these are interconnected. And I'm just blown away. And I'm like, well, how do you know this? He goes, I built the locking system, the locking mechanism that allows these trains to go back and forth. So if you have two trains that are passing by in a vacuum chamber, there's certain physics and dynamics that have to be present. And there's certain like air in and air out, and it's a vacuum chamber. He goes, I built all that. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. And I believed him. The guy had no reason to lie. I was never going to see him again in my life. But yeah, so there's massive underground complexes. And I think what's happening right now, clandestinely, like kind of Trump headed towards this today with the submarine, is there's a hidden war going on. Yes. And we're just beginning to get a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I talked this whole 28 minutes.
Well, the submarine aspect of it, I think, is now starting to come clear to us that we didn't really understand how much is actually going down in the waters, not only in sense of just military activities. I actually believe there's a whole lot more activities going on than we're led to believe, especially when we come down to the Ghislaine having her own submarine, and these private islands are traveling via submarines, makes you really understand that this type of transport is undetectable, at least by the way that we're on the surface, in the way the laws and what enforcements and those type of things are looking at. You can pull over an 18-wheeler and catch a human trafficker. Try to do that in a submarine, it's going to be way tougher. And then the other aspect of it is the submarine technology is airtight, right? So there has been a lot of talk in regards to converting these submarines to space vehicles to be able to travel out. And I don't doubt that one bit, because this is something that there's a little bit of the information that will come out. And yet everything logistically makes sense, but then it gets squashed. So that's one of the things I've always found, that it may be a conspiracy, but let's look at it for the reason from number one, operational logic and what it can do and what it does. The other thing that I want to talk about in regards to just add on to the Denver airport thing. I do believe there's an underlayer. Like you said, there's too much proof to that. But I also think there's another level of technology that we're just not really understanding, which is interdimensional portal travel, which is being able to, to be able to walk through a wall into a facility, opposed to having to go through a third density opening door, hinge, that type of entrance. And the reason why I bring this up, because personally I've had certain experiences that I just went, what was that? Which seems to be, was it a dream state? Was it an interdimensional vibration state? You have to do enough of it to kind of understand, to go, okay, this is starting to feel this way. Like, for instance, remote viewing. Remote viewing is documented as, legit. There's training for remote viewing. At the same time, is this imagination, or are you actually now vibrating at a different level and you're able to go into a place? Now, the key thing is, how do you go into a place and reassemble yourself in matter? Now, that part of it is subjective to our imaginations, because we just have not seen the proof right in front of us. But at the same time, I'm a proponent to really believe this. Everything's in a Akashic record. So if we receive something, that means it exists out there in documentation of somewhere for us to receive it. And for us in 1966 to see Star Trek in the transporter room, where they can actually disassemble and reassemble matter, that is something that, from now, what I understand, is a disclosure to all of us. Because, again, Gene Roddenberry was LAPD. Gene Roddenberry was also part of a secret society. Whether he was 33 degree or not, I'm not sure, because I've never seen pictures of that. But I do know LA enough to recognize that you don't just become a cop and somehow get into the business of propaganda.
Well, didn't Gene Roddenberry actually have a series of dreams that led to the writing and creation of Star Trek?
Well, I think that may be a story that he tells. I believe there's a lot of people are handpicked out of a group and go, here, this is your assignment, and we're going to do this with it. Right now, why was Lucille Ball so adamant about, getting this greenlit to make sure it keeps funneling enough information out there, and then make sure it's 3 years so syndication can go in? I mean, she has other shows, other things in production.
So she was a part of Star Trek?
Yeah, she was the head of Desi production. Lucille Ball single-handedly championed that show from her end as a sea level, to say to the world, hey, this is something that we need here. And the guys in their suits and ties in that Desilu production facility had to just go, yes, boss. And this, to me, was one of the biggest disclosure, because let's look at it. If we're in 1966, which I know you're not there, but I was a little kid, this was just fantasy. You're saying, oh, it's so great if we can meet an alien. It'd be so great if we can travel beyond the speed of light. All these ideas. Remember, at that time, they were already pushing the UFOs. They were already pushing all these extraterrestrial activities and technologies. So for us now to look back at 66, which is decades and decades ago, it just seems like, well, was it that groundbreaking? Yes, it was. If you look at what was going on in the world, our cell phone is every bit of what the communicator in the tricorder is doing. There's no doubt about it.
Agreed.
Direct energy weapon is exactly what a phaser is. We all know that. Now, traveling in warp speed. Anybody prove that yet? Well, I don't know. Remote viewing tend to kind of move you in that warp speed if you can actually go see something. So there's things that's out there that gave us ideas, like food replicators and textile replicators. I believe that actually exists because just due to the fact that if we have 3D printers for our house to make stuff just out of, plastic goods and whatnot, believe me, they're so light years ahead of it. And I'll give the audience a kind of example of just how far back maybe some times were. When I was in retail business electronics in early 2000, the LG rep came and talked to us. And of course, LG is Korean. And a lot of people don't know that LG actually is also Gold Star, which is the crappy stuff that everybody thought that was being sold in Walmart. They just didn't understand regards to America's buying habits. But LG was one of the largest military contracting for technology in Korea. So this is another thing that, okay, well, what does all this mean? Well, and then this rep kind of told us that, yeah, what we see in smartphones here in America coming into 2003, 2004, Koreans have already smart watches. Right. So Apple Watches, being do the Dick Tracy bit, was already in their society. If we look at this as a big picture, then of course there's pockets of technologies that exist that we otherwise just really don't know. This is why the submarine aspect of it, the first thing I heard when we were talking about the islands and the trafficking of the islands, I just went, oh man, this is bigger than I thought. Yep. Because of traveling under. Then, of course, if you do, the esoteric research and so forth, that underneath the water, there's another world that has its own ocean, that has its own ecosystem, and their own civilization. Do I believe that? I used to think that was a joke. I don't anymore, because I have seen enough of people here on the surface that we would think, oh, well, that's just another human being, and not really, just by their behavior, shape-shifting, or just a pure unconsciousness of how to not have empathy, psychotics.
So one thing that I was told a while back, and I don't know the truth of this, but now that I look at it, it kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Is the person looked at me and said, do you really think conscious beings were meant to live on the surface of the planet? It's dangerous up there.
Yeah.
Why would they want to do that? They should live inside the planet. You live inside the house to get out of the elements.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And he goes, think about it. And, one of the theories is like, what if hollow earth theory was actually real and legitimate, and that inside the earth was a whole other world with an ecosystem, a habitat, all of this stuff, oceans. And we know that there's actually an ocean 10 times larger than the ocean on the surface underneath, right? But what if all planets in our solar system were like that? That the surfaces are actually not habitable. They look at like surface dwellers as like, oh, mouth breathers, those surface dwellers, right? And what if that was a possibility? And you start to go into the story of the Vril and the Nazis. This tends to make a little bit more sense that there's a very good possibility that this is true, that there's a whole world underneath our feet of a thriving civilization, a thriving metropolis, potentially millions, if not billions of people that look at us as just surface dwellers. Like it's like the animals in the forest. Like we would know that they were there. Like, no, not really. Like if they look at us as like unevolved surface dwellers or cavemen, it's like, are you going to go out into the woods and see a bear or a deer? No. Right.
Yeah.
Why would they come to this surface when they don't need to? They can exit and enter out of the North and South Pole. They can leave the planet. Occasionally they come and drive through the planet and do their things, or they send their probes out to do it. Yeah. But other than that, their whole system is leaving planet and going to other planets and doing things throughout the solar system. They have no concern about us until we started to turn nuclear weapons around. And then that became a threat to them. And they started the kind of, hey, what are you guys doing?
Right.
I got to blow my nose, but keep on going.
Yeah. Well, overall, the peacekeeping, I think, from the group that has higher intelligence, higher technology, maybe even bigger history than we all imagine, this group is not going to risk letting the so-called the rabid dogs on the surface tear up their world. But at the same time, what I've noticed that there's a lot of talk in the so-called the spiritual side of that we as humans are really nothing but more than a container to the consciousness. Okay, so this is a theory, an opinion, because other people could say, well, no, that's not true. Of course, there's also everybody that's out there saying, well, consciousness is within us. Dogs don't have it. Cats don't have it. And then the other people who has dogs and cats going, are you nuts? So this already creates on this surface, this arguing, disagreement, separation. And I think that's the entire experiment. Because let's just take this back. For quite a while, we were all following the Sumerian text of Zechariah Sitchin being, this is the oldest thing, and this is most likely what happened. Anunnaki came down, played with the DNA, created a slave race. Then, of course, as we move along the timeline, we realize that Zechariah Sitchin made this up. So now we're like going, well, gee, that's not really good, because now we just proven another lie in humanity. So what is this whole thing about? Now, let's talk about this this so-called Andrew stepping down and basically surrendering all his royal titles. How big is that? Well, okay, so let's look at it from a perspective of the royal family. And there's a lot of talk about the royal family preys upon children and so forth. There's history.
The reptilians.
Yeah.
David Icke.
Okay, so of course, David flat out talks about that. And I'll say this. I've had an experience with someone that I personally saw shifting in real time. And I think what it is that there's a level of consciousness that they can infiltrate if you allow it. And that's where the free will comes in. But they infiltrate you at a young age, especially if you're sexually abused and you start to compartmentalize yourself. You start to lock away from the pure goal of center of heart. And this is very easily for them to kind of infiltrate and start to bring their entity, like demon. In Chinese, we call it jing, which is jin, right? Jinn. We've heard that as well. This infiltration, how could it be a folklore made up when it's been talked about dynasty after dynasty after dynasty, and it's in folklores and stories, not just in China, but every civilized society on this planet. Okay, so anyone out there that has logic in mind that goes, oh, I'm not into conspiracy, oh, I don't believe in that, you need to wake up and really look at the truthfulness of what's going on and what we're being infiltrated. So let me just share this.
Hold on. I want to jump in there real quick, because I want to show people how mythology or even these jinn myths can be translated into something unbelievable. So if nobody has heard of this, there is an archaeological site found in the Sinai called the Kuntalet Ajrud. Okay, and you can look this up. So it's called the Kenite hypothesis. And what we know is that the site is the Kuntalet Arjud is located in the northeastern Sinai Peninsula, roughly halfway between Kadesh Barnea and Eilat, the ancient Zion Gerber. The site sits on a strategic desert hill along a caravan and military route that connected the Red Sea, the Negev, and Judah Samaria, an important corridor for trade and religious pilgrims. It dates to the Iron Age, the Second Iron Age, 830 to 760 BCE, roughly during the reigns of Jehoshaphat and Jeroboam II in Israel, and Amaziah and Uzziah in Judah. In that period, Israel and Judah were not monolithic religions. Okay? The worship of one God, Yahweh, did not exist. It existed alongside a pantheon of gods, where Yahweh was the one that they chose out of the pantheon. So when you go into the Bible and it says Elohim, this is why Elohim is plural. Okay? But this is myth that has fallen away. So archaeologically, Kuntalit, Arjud, consisted of a fort-like complex, 2 main buildings, storage, a pithoil, large jars, plastered walls inked with inscriptions and paintings, very well documented, tree of life, bulls and lions, solar disc, stylized human figures. So this is where it gets really interesting. So scholars have long noted that the earliest references to the primary god of Kundalet place him in the southern desert regions, Taman, Sire, Edom, Paran, and Sinai, not initially in Canaan. For example, early biblical poetry preserves this, that this god came from Taman, the Holy One from Mount Paran, or this god came from Sinai and dawned in the seer. He shone forth on Mount Paran, and this god that went out from the seer and marched in the fields of Edom. Those references suggest that this god was originally a desert or southern mountain deity, possibly worshipped by nomadic tribes, the Midianites, Kenites, and Edomites, before being integrated into a larger pantheon. Now, who is this God? Yahweh. And so there's, if you've ever heard of the Asherah theory, the Asherah theory is that it was a desert demon, a jinn, that was immortalized through worship by the mountain people and the desert people. And they brought him in. And this is a completely separate than this archaeological site. But I throw that out there because there's a lot of context there if you can connect the dots for people out there to begin connecting the dots on that. What does that mean? It's up to your interpretation. But it's a good point of reference to what he was talking about with the jinn, because these things do exist. They are very, very real. And by the way, the word demon comes from the Latin for daemon, which is disembodied, means that it is a consciousness, spirit, consciousness without a body.
Yeah. In this is where us being on the planet, being indoctrinated with the education system, with the propaganda of mass media, we get so distracted and divide in the sense of not centering ourselves. So we don't recognize these things other than when we read it, just, oh yeah, it doesn't hit home because we're not connected to the source nearly as, I would say, robust compared to when we were a child. That's why you've noticed that, a child of 1-2 years old sometimes could say things you just go, what is going on here? How would this child have this kind of verbiage and thought process? And it's because I think the truth sense of that they haven't been clouded, they're still connected to the source, and they're able to be able to say it out loud, not really thinking about it because they're just in it. Where when we're at this point, there's no doubt in my mind that the reptilian race exists. And the reptilian race, if you look at it, is actually a better designed race than Homo sapiens like us. This skin cannot go onto a rocky slope and take a tumble and not be absolutely destructive in the sense of cuts, bruises, and so forth. You take a reptilian living on this environment, it's like wearing an armor. So that to me has always been the better design. And I started looking at this as, okay, well, what other things that the reptilian race have that was better designed than humans? And the other aspect of it is they're bigger. So therefore, they're capable of doing more things from the feet of strength. Okay, there's that. Third is they have a capability of a vibrational control over things. Like, for instance, if you ever have a pet that you really connected with, there's a vibrational control that you can actually talk to your pet, control your pet in a way that you don't have to bark, hit with a newspaper, none of that. So on that level, I believe that the reptilian race came and recognized that, hey, you know, there's something about this. I don't know, Homo sapien race is what I would call a beginner level. Okay. When I say beginner level, meaning that we're not as evolved, because look around, right? And when they're in control, they've already have their system, their way of capturing, their way of running their government, their way of life. Then we serve as what? Convenience, food source, perversions. And let me just share this too about in the
like
humanism
chicken.
aspect of it. The what?
It's like chicken.
That and more so, because, you know, hopefully you're not banging a chicken, but
Some people, goats.
yeah, I know. Then this is why I'm looking at it as, are we evolved yet? Because of, you know, crazy stuff. But here's the thing, you know, we've often look at mythology, especially, you know, Zeus and people like that having relations with humans because they found us attractive. Is it? Or is it it's just something that there is a level of energy that they can thrive from? And one of the things that I think that came from my research to work humanism and sexual magic and things like that is that the pornography aspect of it was introduced in to actually destroy the energy of human race. Because in human dynamic of the sexual act and the release of the orgasm and so forth, it's a very energetic charge. And when it's done right, it creates an enormous amount the energy, enormous amount of capability to restructure matter. And by teaching humans to waste that and to be distracted from that helps them in regards to being able to control
our creative
easily.
influence. Yeah. So I am 100% aligned with you on this.
Yeah.
So for anybody wondering what Jeff is talking about here, is that the innate creative potential. And I think what you're actually getting at is, if you look at the reptilian race, they are large, they're muscular, they got rough skin, but they lack the spiritual development. Where in humanity, in the physical origin, we're very underdeveloped. We're not very big for a species. We're not very strong. I mean, we are strong, but not in comparison to other large predators on this planet. But we're incredibly intelligent and more spiritually dynamic, more spiritually versatile. We're more evolved spiritually other than we are physically. And so one of the things that we have is a creative nature. And this has always been a theory within a lot of the UFO and alien worlds, is that one reason why all these alien species are so interested in us is because of our creative nature, is that we have the innate ability to manifest and create within the world utilizing our mind. But the process of how that works has been lost in translation, has been suppressed, is occulted within knowledge. And you actually hinted at it earlier when you said imagination. It's all in our imagination. Well, it literally is, because our imagination isn't this random vehicle that just goes off on tangents. If you focus your imagination and you know how to utilize your imagination, it's not an imagination. It is a manifestation vehicle. It is quite literally a projection of the real world internal to yourself. And if you can hone in on that tool and direct attention inside of it, you can project that into the outward world, and you can set the real vibrations. And people are like, vibrations, Josh, really? Guys, listen. Thought energy is electromagnetic. It's being transmitted outside of your head right now. There is pulsations, oscillations, boom, 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 electromagnetic energy that is in the configuration of the thoughts and ideas that you're having. Right now, I have words, compression waves that are going out into the universe. That is holding an intentional and emotional energy that is going out and that's producing real energy and real influence and action in the world. It is absolutely truthful. You have photons that are being ejected from your body right now. Do you think that they carry information? Absolutely. Water has structure. Your body is 82% water. You're telling me that that water doesn't hold a certain message, refrainment from the contextualization of your mind and your imagination of what you created? It absolutely does. And then water oscillates. Water is continuously transmitting inside and outside. And that means that it's communicating with the external world, projecting that message out there. So absolutely, we are these massive creative beings. But here's the thing. Our greatest power is the harnessing of this. This is why all various ancient traditions talk about chi or ki or the various different energy inside of us or spirit, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit's another aspect of this, is that inside of us. But what happens is, in most men, blow it. And I mean that quite literally. They blow it because there's various different practices within different religion and I don't want to say cults, but occult and esoteric practices that deal with what's called Tantra. Now, Tantra, you probably be like, that's evil. It's sex magic. Well, no, it's creative magic. It's about the combining of man and woman for the dual convergence of massive creative power. That is actually the one thing that the evil in this world is afraid of the most, is when man and woman come together in complete harmony. Because when they come together in complete harmony and they have the power couple, the creative nature of those two energies combined, they can do anything and create anything. Go back and listen to any billionaire out there talk about their wives and like, I couldn't have done it without her. And they're not lying, because that is the source of their power. It's the balancing of that internal drive, that internal life force. It needs that dualistic nature. And we see this throughout all of mythology and esotericism. There's something known as the trivium, or the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Mother, the Father, and the Son. And what this is the convergence of the Mother and the Father, the convergence of the two, the masculine and the feminine, produce a third emergent phenomena, the creation. And this is so important to understand, because this is what you have right now. You have the masculine and the feminine, the left and the right brain. And the center of it is your pineal gland, which is the seat of your imagination. And you can generate from there the emergence of creation from it. And this is the one thing that they're wanting to suppress on this planet. And this is why they perverted sexualization. This is why they're transitioning people on this planet and completely just bringing Satanism to sexuality. It's horrible.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where the ones that know start to wake up and really see how corrupt the system really is. And the argument is about human rights. That's how they're leaning the whole thing on, is just, I have a right to be whoever I want to be. Not really understanding what you wanting to be is unnatural, which is then against the creation of the universe, the creation of humans, lives, consciousness, without going into a religion aspect of it. Because I'm a person that believe religion borrowed a piece of it and then start to structure a constricting system, because it's easy to be, I think, taught to go a certain direction. And once you feel their connection of it, you embrace it, and therefore you locked into it. And you'll never question it again. However, from someone who's looking from outside in could say, hey, wait a minute here, that is not healthy, or this is not actually correct. And I'll say this a little bit more in detail. How about this? And in human being, I believe this body that we have is not a steward of our planet. We're not here in consciousness reaching the creator or God come down and be the stewardship of anything. I believe we're in an instrument. This body is like a guitar, a piano. The consciousness is the artist, and it comes in and uses this instrument to create the reality that's assembled by energy, matter, and then it becomes the third density matrix reality. Now, a lot of people just think, well, then focus and make yourself $1 million. Why don't you do that? Because there's laws of the universe that creates things that is not just for the third density. You know, the whole thing is, can I create something out of nothing? Yeah, I've done it. And I'll give a great example. You know, as a kid, when I was in my mid-teens, I wanted a Les Paul guitar. I wanted a Marshall stack. And I know there's no way, it doesn't matter how good of a summer job I got, I was never going to be able to buy that level of equipment. Just too expensive. But I continuously to focus on it, drew pictures, put intentions to it. And before I graduated from high school, I got my Marshall, got my Les Paul. And is that just what? Coincidence? Is that just, oh, well, you have nice parents? No, it came from the intention of bringing that reality and forming it into the matter. Because if you tell your parents, hey, I want to be an electric guitar player, or I want to be a guitar player, most of the time the answer would be, don't you want to do something that's going to make you some money? And it always goes back to that. So as you can see, we've been brainwashed in sense of the way we were taught to go down this path of wealth, third density. And now all of a sudden, with what's all going on, like you're saying, what's going on out in the world? Look at it. Why is Venezuela in the news? Yeah, I do believe there's something that's deeper, that's underground. There's something that's deeper underground a lot of places on this planet. Now, I'll give you an example. There was a story that came out right around 2020. And, you know, we had a lockdown. So everybody's just sitting at home, either, you know, goofing around or doing research or reading and whatnot. And at that time, I was listening to podcasting and I was just digging because of something just didn't seem to be right to say this disease or this virus, right, was going to kill everybody if you don't stay home. It just didn't make sense.
Right.
I mean, logically, you have to think air is coming through my window. I'm going to be dead anyway, if that's the case. So from 2020, there was a story that came out that supposedly is 17 countries that was doing a military project together to root out Europe. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you remember that there was a village in Switzerland that they went in and brought out like 20 families, something like that? This story ran one time and it disappeared. Yeah, just disappeared. And I remember thinking to myself, you got to be kidding. They found the black family, you know, because for the longest time, having to deal with black magic and so forth. And I know this is probably a very uncomfortable subject for a lot of people, but having experience in Satanism and black magic, I was very much aware that there were European black arts that was so deep, especially around the Switzerland, Netherlands area. I mean, the foundation of black metal, where did that come from? And black metal is flat out Satan glory, you know, and everybody thinks this is entertainment, but I will attest that being in it, having done it, this is not. It actually, you can bring in energy from that level. You can create an empowerment from that source and then leash upon your common people here on the surface and use it to your advantage, whether it's to be that everybody, you know, afraid of you. So they're like, oh, you're the man, you're the, you know, whatever it may be.
One point to make here as well is I want to make a transition for everybody.
Yeah.
Imagine that in the context of a magician, like spiritual magician, but then imagine a physical being, maybe not having that mental capability, but developing the same capacity with technology. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are what we call aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. And the technology aspect of it is actually what I think is the development from them to be able to shackle us, to imprison us easier.
Well, I think what it is that we were nerfed. Give it kind of a word, right? Is it's somehow, some way we were nerfed. Is that we were outplayed, we were nerfed, and then whether that's genetically with a second chromosome, I don't know, but we were nerfed, And then their technological superiority is what has been utilized to suppress us while they study us. And while they try to figure out how to basically generate that through hybridization, chimerization, right?
Yeah.
And so at least that's my theory of like the last few thousand years. But I want people to understand that when we talk about the spirit world versus the extraterrestrial world, there is no separation or division. They are one and the same thing. There's physical beings that live on other planets in our galaxy, in our universe, and there's this interdimensional layer, which, you know, I can hear like a scientist right now. Do you even know how to define interdimensional? Yes, I do. And what I mean by that is that there is a world right in front of you that you cannot see nor touch nor interact with, but it exists. And you have subtle influences over it, and it can have subtle influences over you. And that many have learned to cross-communicate, whether through technology or through spirituality, through this. And if you go and watch a lot of these different sci-fi shows, Stargate SG-1, I think, is one of the best, because number one thing that you have is you have technology that is like materialistic technology, like the Asgard race in Stargate SG-1. They were technologically superior to anybody else in the galaxy besides the ancients. But their technology could do magic. And what was, I forgot who it said it was, they said magic is simply technology not yet realized, right? But they could do technology that appeared to be magic. They could beam from their spaceship to the ground level. They can, phasers, and they could travel at, 100 times the speed of light, which is crazy. But then you had these beings that were ascended beings that were once technologically advanced that could walk through walls. They could manifest anywhere in the galaxy in an instant. So they still had the same capability, but they did it through their mind and consciousness interaction with the universe versus technologically. As in, it's the same thing. It's just the methodology of doing it. And this is what I want people to understand about the war that's happening on this planet right now. The factors involved is you have something very similar. Is you have us that have these innate abilities but have been massively suppressed, and they want to keep it suppressed. And this is what all the psychological warfare is about. But then you have beings on this planet that maybe look just like us but are more technologically advanced and more spiritually inept, and they want to control us through that technological advancement. But then you could have influence from, what we call spiritual beings that can influence this reality, whether directly or indirectly, or even manifest inside of people and do it like this. But then you also have technological beings coming from other planets. And here's the thing is there's no difference between any of that. It's all expressions of consciousness. Some of it's evil, some of it's good, some of it's middle line, gray line. But all of it is like, we shouldn't treat it as separate. Like we got ghosts and interdimensionals and magic and then aliens. No, it's all one thing. It's all the same thing, and we're just looking at different perspectives of it.
Yeah. And I've come to start to recognize that probably about 10 years ago, because of the ghost aspect of it has been in my life for quite a while. My mother used to tell me stories about when she was a little girl seeing ghosts and so forth. So evidently there's something in our DNA in my family that is very attractive to something. Because when I went to the LA, I had just experience after experience. But again, too, is I think there's a magnetized area that attracts these type of energies. Like, for instance, when I got the most experiences with the ghost or apparitions and whatnot, came from Laurel Canyon.
Area.
And Laurel Canyon, of course, has this history that is second to none in regards to just crazy. And to see some of these things,
Zappa, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin.
Yeah. And where I lived is right around the Dead Man's Curve, where most people aided on their motorcycle, for decades. And this is on the downside of Mulholland going toward the country store. So everybody who around that area knows exactly the Dead Man's Curve. And the key thing about having those experiences, what it does is it helps me to kind of not just to disregard these stories as conspiracy. Because again, just having to seen enough, you form your own opinion and evidence. To try to convince somebody who's never had the experience, that's the hardest because they don't have the experience. So they're just hearing a story and thinking you're making it up. And I believe the cabal recognized this quite a while ago to be able to control the mass by creating a certain storyline. That's why the picture shows, the radio shows, and ultimately television came about. And having television come into our world in the 1940s and the early 50s, and having government being involved with the head of these networks should be already 100% wake everybody up to go, there's something they're doing to you on purpose. This is not just, oh, wow, we created technology, so now we're going to use it for entertainment purposes first. I mean, seriously, let's look at that logic. It doesn't fit. So to me, where we're at today, especially with all these little things popping up, like for instance, the indictments. Why are those things coming out now? Well, because I think the consciousness has been shifting to push for unveiling of the wizard. We have put enough energy to the universe that the universe is creating this in the third matrix density and opening it up. And how are we going to be able to see everything? I don't think within this decade or this century to be able to understand it, because we're just still too, I think, too close to the propaganda aspect of it. In other words, we need to grow some more from it. But let's say on the other side of the coin is, if you recognize you're a consciousness and you're coming into a container and you're able to access the information out that's abundantly available to you, then you may be the one that's sitting there going, I fully get it and I fully understand. So how do I help? How do I make this a better place? And by recognizing it itself, it's already generating that energy back into the universe. And to be able to clarify that we're not playing this game anymore. We're not going to put up with it anymore. I mean, how many times have you seen on your X feed today about abolish the IRS? 30 years ago, this was talked about, and a guy named Schiff was thrown in jail on
Peter
purpose.
Schiff.
Irwin, right?
Oh, Irwin. Yeah. His grandfather.
Yeah. Are you familiar with how much work Irwin has done in regards to showing you the Social Security numbers, how when you were born, your birth certificate is a so-called
a bond? Yep.
Yeah. He brought all this out in the late 70s and they threw him in jail and he got out. So he continuously to fight this war in regards to the income tax. Pay no income tax was his biggest thing. And they ultimately arrested him, put him in jail. His lawyers failed him. All the judges failed him. And he died in prison. Unjustifiably. Why? Because he was pointing something out. Federal Reserve is not part of our government and income tax is voluntary. By saying those two things, he died in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you said that today, which I see it all the time on X, nobody's going to prison on it. What happened? How could something that could be so offensive 30 years ago now just like, oh yeah, let's do it. We don't need a private firm to tell us how to, use our monies, and why are we being taxed over and over and over on things that we bought? So the cabal government.
It's called the zeitgeist.
Yes.
The spirit of our times.
Yeah. And I think it's now moving in a momentum that is now becoming a tidal wave. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at, right? And this is the most exciting time for anybody who's out there still angst, feeling uncomfortable, fighting the system, trying to make a living. The number one thing you need to do is relax and really understand who you are. Because without that, you're going to buy into, again, the rules of the game that they're giving you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, if I don't do what they tell me, they'll put me in jail. I will rot in prison.
So the great point of segue, because number one is we have to understand that there is this system and this these people, beings, whatever you want to call it, that want to control us. They don't want our creative powers to be out there. And I've talked about this, how there's cycles over cycles over cycles. And that right now we are in a galactic cycle. And I believe that in the galaxy, in the universe, God has created a system where conscious evolution occurs naturally. And that we go through periods of what's called awakening. Yeah. And I believe that we're in a period of awakening right now. And so I think that whatever was done to us a few thousand years ago to suppress this innate knowledge is now being relinquished, being released, and that we're waking up to it. And this is kind of what you're talking about right now. And that these people or beings or this evil in the world is seeking to control it. How are they seeking to control it? We got to remember, they have no spiritual level of creation. They can't do it spiritually. They can only do it technologically. And this is why you have the trans movement and the transhumanism movement. The trans movement actually came first because it kind of dulls the mind with people of this transitional nature of humanity, where there's, gender neutrality, and, there is no sex or masculinity or femininity. There is consciousness, and consciousness can take many forms, and that was done on purpose. It's psychological warfare. But the next step of that is the convergence of biology with technology. Because if you start to think about the implementations of control, is if this evil on the planet really truly wanted to harness that innate ability within inside of us, the only way to do that would be to harness it through a controlled environment of a hive mentality, to where the influences of the people that are being creative in their nature was completely controlled. Yeah. Welcome to the real world, Neo. That's transhumanism. That's AI. That's the Borg.
Yeah. And if you look at it, the conditioning is abundant. It's out. If you look at any streaming services, especially, the ones that's controlled by the left, such as Netflix, it's an unbelievable amount of fear-driven, low vibration content. Mm-hmm. And why is that put out on purpose? Because it's easy for people to come home from work, relax, and not put another thought to what they're going to put into their thought. Isn't that the irony? Right. And by doing that, they then keep on assimilating these perversive thoughts, especially these things that deals with self-serving, just decadent, how I want to say it is, it's serving self on the grandest scale to get the shortest results, or the shortest, best results in the shortest time. Mm-hmm. So therefore, there's no feed into development. So this instant gratification of getting this energy, this adrenaline rush, or however that they're getting it from, whether it's be a fear horror movie, a sexual heightened driven soft porn, all the way to hardcore. These are all things that just constantly regurgitating itself in a cycle, like you said. And when we are in that cycle, eventually it's going to burn out. Eventually it's going to run its course to the point where you're going to be destroyed. There's not going to be the spirituality of self or the balance of the self, because you're so shut down from it. You're only recognizing what that shell and what that condition becomes. This is why you look at how could certain people behave certain ways, right? There's certain mentality that's been fed into certain group of people. Okay. Could I say that certain group of people are the same people that lives in projects? Possibly. Or is it certain people that unanimously, unconditionally pour their 100% passion and commitment to a sports team? And just think about this logically. Why would you put that much energy into someone's company and their product? It doesn't make sense if you look at it from a very cut and dry point of view. So if you ever notice, this aspect of it is that the regions that we have in the United States, in sense of sports team placements and so forth, the ones that has the older history, especially like the New England area, the also the blue collar area, such as Pittsburgh, such as Green Bay. Why are they continuously being funneled this so-called success in this so-called performance competition to be able to rally up that consciousness to go that direction? Because it's easy to control. This product is something that the cabal goes even beyond. I don't even think the reptilians that are fully the ones in charge either. I believe there's several other grades that comes around. And I believe,
do you remember the movie Jupiter Ascending?
I saw part of it. I didn't see the whole thing.
So in the movie Jupiter Ascending, you have the gargoyles, the reptilians, that are the servants of the House of Abraxas, which are humans.
Yeah.
And so it's actually humans that are the most advanced species in the universe that own Earth. And then once Earth is ripe, they harvest it. And it's the reptilians and the grays. So it's reptilians are like the generals and the grays are like the soldiers that go down there and manage it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, is that pretty true to what it could be?
I would say that, it's pretty freaking close, probably.
Right. That's what I'm saying, that in regards to when I first got into UFO stuff and you see little gray men, you never thought of them as subservients or being an army scouts or anything like that. You just went, oh my goodness, this is a life that came from other planets. That's what it was taught to us. But as we dive deeper into these, grays, evens, whatever you want to call them, you recognize that they're biological bots that is to serve another group, and not all reptilians are bad from what I understand, especially the big white ones are actually quite regal and very much in regards to the right things to do in the universe. So how do they let one group of reptilians to let the other group of reptilians to do something that's absolutely counterproductive in the universe? It's no different than I think all of us on the planet to look at down the street. How can we let that to be the drug house? How can we let that to be the stripper, the strip joint? It's the same regurgitation of that cycle, like you mentioned.
It absolutely is.
We as humans have to take our birthright. I really do believe this, that empower ourselves. Number one, to put away all this distractions. Just put it away. It's not that hard. It's like a lot of people have addiction problems, right? Saying like, oh, I can't quit drinking coffee. I can't quit this. I can't stop doing that. It's a matter of thought in your choice. Decisions are made in an instant. If you choose not to, it's done. But you choose to, therefore it comes back. It has nothing to do with addiction. It has to do with your capability of choice. Well, there's a chemical and physiological dependence. We can change that in a matter of 1 to 2 days. So that argument doesn't really hold water. Well, it's still in my system. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's the mindset. It's the mindset that the strongest part of our selves, our consciousness, that is been so conditioned to buy into other people's rules that we use it on ourselves to self-govern, to self-restrict. And we're our worst enemy because of it. Just to look around. How many people will tell you, how's your day today? And the thing would be negative. Oh, man. Right?
It's one of my problems with people I love in my life is like, this is my day. And it's just all negative. And it draws you down, right?
I
don't want to come down to that level. I want to be like, listen to this exciting thing that happened to me today. This was amazing, right? Like that's what I want.
Sure.
Real quick, I want to go ahead and pay a little bit of the bills for everybody out there. I love you guys, but something we just have to do. And the one that I had up just disappeared, but let me bring it back up. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run this. You guys will see this on Rumble, nobody else. And so Let's go here. And this is actually interesting that you're just talking about this. So this episode is brought to you by ZipX and nicotine-infused toothpicks. Right? Okay. And my head is being kind of covered by that on Rumble. A satisfying, discreet, and great tasting way to curb your cravings anytime, anywhere. Perfect for flights, events, restaurants, or anywhere smoking and vaping are banned. ZipX satisfies both nicotine cravings and the hand-to-mouth habit with 6 long-lasting flavors and 2 milligram or 3 milligram strengths, proudly made in the USA, and one of the most cost-effective options out there. Not in the nicotine? Try our caffeine and B12-infused picks for a boost. Zip more, smoke less. Visit ZipXToothpicks.com and get 10% off your first order with code CREATOR. Must be 21 plus. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. And that website for everybody out there, ZipXToothpicks.com. And actually, something I'm probably going to try myself because that actually looks pretty damn good. I didn't realize they had all those cool things on there. So I'm going to try some of those, and I'll let you guys know how they are. But check that out. If you want that ad, you got to go to Rumble. If you want to get into that website, the link should be below. But, Jeff, we got a few more minutes left here. And one thing I wanted to talk about is how does this manifest next? What is the global cabal or whoever's in charge and control? How do they generate the chaos that they need in the world? What is the thing that they're going to do? Do you think there's going to be like a fake alien invasion or something?
Well, that's been talked about for quite a while, that the last card in their hand is they're going to create an alien invasion, and is going to cause devastation and fear throughout the world. For guys like ourselves who's heard this story, especially from Deathbed of Von Braun talking about this, we're like, bring it. Let's see what you got. Let's see the technology. Dazzle me, because I think, I don't know if you had dreams about it. I've had several dreams where going outside in the streets and ships are flying over me like you see in Star Wars,
I haven't had it in a long time, but yes, I used to have them.
Yeah. So we've already seen this in a way that was very comforting. We don't get this just because of our imagination and dreaming. I really do believe that we were brought to see other parts of the universe. I believe that we were here at a certain point with this knowledge because we are here to be able to kind of share this kind of openness with everybody else that is not quite there, but start questioning their reality.
Right.
And the key thing is, why am I here? I think that's the biggest question everybody has asked. Why am I here on this planet? Why am I here? And you're going to get a lot of different answers from everybody who is qualified, a lot of answers from everybody that probably are not qualified. But the key thing is, why are you not asking yourself that question? Why am I here? And listen diligently, be center and still and hear that answer. You'll be really amazed that my story. I wanted to be a rock star. I went play electric guitar, been in the scene in LA, did all that for decades. And one day, somehow, it just came to me. It's just like, I'm just not doing this. This is not good, because I had a fork in the road where I actually said, what am I going to do now? The hairband thing is gone, and the new depression of everybody in cargo shorts and hating life, that wasn't me. So what was I going to do if I want to stay in this business? Was I start getting piercings and tattoo my arm? That's how I'm going to fit in now? And I made a conscious decision not to do that. And because of that, this came from after my rebirth. If I didn't have that rebirth moment, I probably would be full of tattoos and still doing the same thing. We wouldn't be here doing this. But now I'm here to be able to share a lot of these real stories, as well as the deep dive research in all the seminars I've been to and the classes I've taken, to be able to help people, to be able to understand where we're at with it. If and what is going on today, is it going to be great for our future? The answer is yes, absolutely. Right. Well, how would you know that? Because that is how I am going to create every moment of my reality going forward.
Well,
And
and
that to me
that's
is
the spiritual and mental precipice. I mean, everybody in the world is in the mindset that the world is becoming a better place and peace on earth, and that we're winning this war against evil. And honestly, that's that's the majority of the motivation forward that you need to make it actually happen. Excuse me. And at the other side of it is that there is stuff happening. We're seeing it. And I know that people are like, Josh, everybody keeps on saying nothing's going to happen. But look, things are happening. I mean, you just had Donald Trump today talk about, right? We bombed the shit out of a drug running submarine. What?
Yeah.
What? Where was this in the news? Didn't go to the news, but he just said it. It happened.
Yeah.
So with that being said, okay. Now we go back to one of the things I reported on. Remember when the first drug vessel got struck and they said that 11 people were killed?
Yeah.
And I said, that's a go fast. There's only one hit. There's only 3 to 5 people on a go fast. Where are these other people? The other one was a submarine. We just weren't told about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's a lot more happening. And I think the Trump administration is doing that on purpose. Now, what do I think is going to happen next? I think that what has been done in the dark is going to come to the light.
Yes.
I think that that's where we're at, people.
Yeah.
What is done in the dark is going to come to the light.
Yeah.
So this is what's going to happen for everybody out there. If you are a premium subscriber of the Red Pill Project, of what we do here, the Daily Dose, Conversation on the Fringe, typically every Thursday night, I have a Q&A. I had it canceled last night because the show went really, really late. We did go late tonight, but it is Friday. So I want to do one tonight. I'm not going to be there very long. I'm not feeling well. You can tell I'm congested. I got a cough. But the Zoom is open immediately after the show. If you are on any of our premium channels, which is X, Locals, Substack, or Social Red Pill, those are the places that you need to be. If you have a premium subscription, the links will be put up there in less than 5 minutes after the show ends. So go to those platforms, look for your links, and the Zoom will be open almost immediately after the show is over. I don't know if Jeff is going to join, but Jeff is more than welcome to join in if you wanted to join in on there. But I'll see everybody on Zoom for the premium subscribers out there. Everybody else, Jeff has a show coming up this Sunday, the 13th Note podcast. And we're going to be running last week. So it's with, who's your guest this week?
It's Adam Weisner, CEO, the making of CEO. He's the guy who created Kingdom Mindset Strategies.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So it's
going to be
incredible. Great episode right there. And then we're going to try this. Jeff is going to come in and start hosting Conversation on the Fringe. I think his first episode of solo will be next week. He's like, wait, hold on. I didn't know that. Well, he just knows that now. And I think that the episode potentially is going to be about AI and transhumanism, but it's a more in-depth version from an author who is writing on these topics. I'm going to connect Jeff tonight with that. But, and please get out there and set your reminders for Friday night's Conversations on the Fringe. It's a show we definitely want to bring back, but doing the Daily Dose 5 days a week, it's really difficult to do both of those shows for me. But with a new host coming in and taking over Conversation on the Fringe and me jumping in every once in a while, it becomes incredibly plausible and easy to do. So I hope everybody out there has a great night. Jeff, thank you for joining me tonight. And hopefully I get to join you here in the future on Conversations on the Fringe. And everybody, make sure you're giving a like, a follow, subscribe, and much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night.
Yes.
See ya.
Thank you.
Good night.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!